There's one mystery from Community that remains unsolved till this day. Who is the ASS Crack Bandit? The weirdo who drops coins in people's pants. I have 5 main suspects, and today we're finally going to look at all the evidence and conclude this case. Hi everybody, and welcome to Mind and More, where we talk about anything that comes to mind and more. Today, we're talking about the mystery of who the ACB is. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me briefly explain. In Season 5, Episode 3 of the 2010 sitcom Community, there's a prankster on the loose who drops coins in people's underpants. This anonymous prankster is known as the ASS Crack Bandit. I'm not going to say the actual word, I'm just going to spell it out. In this video, I'll just call him the ACB or Bandit. Apart from being extremely bizarre, dropping change in people's underwear is just gross and inappropriate to say the least. So I'm very keen to figure out who this strange criminal is. Another thing to note is that this process of dropping coins in people's underpants is known as cracking. With all that being said, let's crack this mystery. If you like my play on the word crack, please subscribe. Even if you don't, just subscribe. Thanks. I'm going to go through the suspects from least suspicious to most suspicious, providing the evidence for each before making a conclusion on who the bandit is. Let's go. Number 5 is Abed. I like Abed, but I don't fully trust the man. He could do anything to make life look like TV. What's a more TV-like situation than having a criminal on the loose who drops change in people's undies? He was nowhere to be found during the entire episode. Where was he? Was he perhaps cracking other students? He also refused to help with the investigation when the dean asked. Granted, the dean asked in the most offensive way possible by calling him special. But still, why couldn't he help? At the end of the episode, we also see him suspiciously playing with a coin in his hand while deleting recordings of crime shows from his TV. But the reason he lands at number 5 as the least suspicious is he was on a call with Troy when we saw the ACB waiting to crack Troy. So he couldn't have been anywhere near Troy. I also don't think Abed would have done that to his bestie.
In classrooms, secretly investigating teachers behind my back.
Number 4, the dean. I've expressed I don't trust the dean before in a recent video. There's more than meets the eye to that man. I just can't prove it yet. Anyway, the dean denied the existence of the ACB. Why would he do that? Maybe because he is the ACB and doesn't want the case being investigated. He also keeps denying the bandit might be a teacher or someone with access to the teacher's lounge. Why? During this episode, after Professor Hickey points it out, we discover he already had a fake bum lying around at home. Might this be a sign he was obsessed with bums? So obsessed to the point of dropping coins down them. The biggest suspicious action of all is that he forced Starburns to make a false confession. Maybe he did this to protect the reputation of the school, or maybe he did it to cover up his own tracks. Who knows? As for the question of how did he take a call from the bandit while Annie and Jeff were in his office, if he was the bandit, maybe he had help. Maybe he had someone else make the call. He was also in the school cafeteria when the cracking started again, and not in the hallways where Garrett was cracked. But again, maybe he had help. Possibly from his assistant, because that toast at the end of the episode didn't look right. The evidence is all damning, but the dean is only 4th because there's more evidence against the other suspects on my list. So let's move on. Number 3 is Britta. Now, this doesn't seem like the kind of thing Britta would do, but Britta went through a lot. Check out my video about what broke Britta. So it's possible she lost her mind in the process and became the bandit. Or maybe she did it to prove she can actually be good at pranks, considering she'd always been bad at them, as we see in Season 1, Episode 20. Britta could also be weird and sneaky. In Season 6, after a fight with her parents, she broke into Frankie's car and just laid there until Frankie came back. I repeat, she broke into a car. What stops her from throwing pennies down people's underpants then? Anyway, on to other things. The first thing is when Starburns gets caught. She high-fives Duncan. They don't get along, so why the high-five? Why are they even standing next to each other? Is it because they were secretly working together? This would make a lot of sense because Britta and Duncan working together would explain why the bandit seemed to have been in two places at once sometimes, or how Britta may have had access to the teacher's lounge. Annie suspected that the bandit had access to the lounge and maybe Duncan gave Britta the key. The biggest piece of evidence though is that at the end of the episode, Britta is typing her paper titled Into the Mind of the ASS Crack Bandit, and she types ASS Crack Britta instead. Was that a mistake or a guilty conscience? Did she Britta the typing, or was she actually typing the truth? This paper could also explain why she would possibly work with Duncan. Duncan was Britta's psychology professor, and maybe they did it to get data or content for their paper. Speaking of Duncan, the next suspect is Duncan. I am not going to lie. Ian Duncan came back creepier than ever in season 5. He makes a return from England where he'd been taking care of his sick mother right when the ACB starts cracking again. I don't know if it was the stress from taking care of the infirmed or what, but his creepiness was overwhelming in this episode. He couldn't keep Britta's name out of his mouth, and when she wanted to high-five him, he tried to kiss her because according to him, kisses are the British high five. Ew.
Oh, American high five. Sorry.
So besides general creepy behavior, what's the circumstantial evidence against him? The ACB had been dormant and the cracking started again when he came back. Coincidence? Maybe not. The ACB is known to be a Dave Matthews fan because he once sent a note that had Dave Matthews lyrics. Guess who's a big fan of Dave? Ian Duncan. So we caught the bandit parties going on after Starburns is caught, and I have quotation marks around caught because Starburns later retracted his confession. Annie visits Duncan's office. Annie notices Duncan has a pair of quarters in his office. What's the reason for that? Change had been banned at the school, so why did Duncan have a random pack of it? As Annie is about to leave the office, she dropped her keys and Duncan says, "Oopsie, aren't you going to pick those up?" in the creepiest possible way. The way he says, "just reach down," in a hoarse voice should be enough to get him arrested.
Just reach down with your hand and...
Also, why had he been in the office at that time when everyone else was at the party? He didn't initially attend the We Caught the ACB party. He was just getting drunk alone in his office, but then he decided to attend the party after Annie became suspicious of him. Why? Why did he suddenly show up at the party? Did he do this just to look like he was also celebrating the bandit getting caught and thus he's less suspicious? Also, while at the party, he then conveniently gets cracked too. Why now? Was he working with someone? Perhaps Britta. And Duncan getting cracked was just to cover up his or their tracks. Again, it would make sense if there were two people working together as the ACB, and it's quite possible those two were Duncan and Britta. Now, before we get to my main suspect, let's give an honorable mention to Shirley. She was being mad shady, making tons of money from the ACB scandal, but I don't think she's the bandit. When the cracking started again, she was in a very public spot in the cafeteria doing an official opening of her sandwich shop. When the last cracking happened, she was actually on the way to the school to let everyone know of Pierce's passing. I don't trust anyone, and yes, she could have also had help, but apart from the fact that she was benefiting from the situation, there isn't much else to say that she was the bandit. The motive is there, but there's not much else. I also want to mention that I love the ACB song. I found the full version and it's actually a good listen. I also want that "Not This Crack" t-shirt, and the phrase "briefs, belts, and buddies" now lives in my head free of charge. Anyway, the final and main suspect is Annie. Now let me make my very solid case for Annie. We already know she's a head case. I don't put anything past her. In the Dungeons and Dragons episode, they called her a recovering head case, but she was not recovering. She was still unwell. And don't get it twisted, I like Annie Edison, but let's call a spade a spade. She is crazy. And that's also one of the biggest reasons why I love her. So Annie has this thick, decorated folder of all the ACB articles. Did she just have a keen interest in the story, or was she saving mementos of her crimes? In season 2, she used the ACB in her political campaign to become the student body president. She said she was going to go after the bandit and stop him. I don't know how long the bandit had been operating for then, but they'd been at Greendale for about a year and a half. And maybe Annie could have started it so she could one day use stopping the bandit for her campaign. Is it far-fetched? Yes. But is it possible? Yes. Especially for a planner like Annie. After the campaign, there was no point in being the bandit, so maybe that's why she stopped. But then she could have restarted it so she could get closer to Jeff. Her crush on Jeff grew stronger in season 4. I even did a video about the time she spent an entire episode pretending to be Jeff's wife. Jeff was definitely a big enough incentive to start cracking again. She also had way too much information. Is it because she does her research and understands the criminal mind, or because she is the criminal? She's the first to figure out that the bandit may have had access to the teacher's lounge, and she's the first to find the teddy bear note after Troy's attack. How did she even think to look up that teddy bear? She kept claiming it's a teacher. Was she trying to take people off her scent? She could have used Dave Matthews' lyrics in the notes, then deliberately pretended not to know who Dave Matthews is. She's a very smart girl. Pair smarts with insanity, and I can definitely see someone like Annie being the ACB. She's also too invested in this investigation. It's giving the kind of vibe of unalivers who go to their victims' funerals just to get the satisfaction. Maybe she wanted to stay so close to the investigation and to people's reactions for the satisfaction. At the end of the episode, referring to the bandit, Jeff says he's got a feeling he will be back. Annie then responds with, "Oh, her. Why?"
Don't worry. I got a feeling he'll be back.
Or her.
Side note, Troy's reaction to getting cracked is so dramatic, and I loved it. Back to Annie. Also, when the ACB is brought up again in season 6, she acts extremely weird. Why? Why is she the only one reacting like this?
Do I? I mean, doesn't everybody? Could have been anybody.
You may ask, how could have Annie called as the ACB during the time when she was in the dean's office? Again, like everybody else, she could have had help. In my opinion, the ACB was a mastermind who had a bit of help from another person. My best guess is that this mastermind is Annie. She's intelligent, crazy, a careful planner, and had the motive. As for who helped her, it could have been anyone. Annie can also be very convincing when she wants to be. She could have gotten anyone to do her dirty work for her. We've come to the end of this video, and I've presented my case for all my suspects and for who I ultimately believe is the bandit. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What other evidence can you put forward?